Right, the Huduma number, the new Huduma number, that is the Maisha card, eliciting a lot of reactions from the civil society. The need accountability, public participation was not there, and it's got all the hallmark of the unconstitutional Huduma number. Are we trading the same path? Will it also have the same results that we had with the Huduma number being challenged in court, as it were? And this 1 billion shillings that the government is talking about, the new Huduma number, so to speak, is it the number that it had set aside for a second round of Huduma number registration to cover up for those who missed the first phase in 2019, as it had indicated before, if we may hark back to 2021. So we want to interrogate this particular story as well and juxtapose it with the issue of the data protection, all the data that it had. Of course, they will say government has all your data at the end of the day. But in light of what is going on, even with the Worldcoin, these are questions that people are raising, of the harvesting of data is king. Data is the new gold, as it were. So the civil society will go full steam ahead and challenge this in court. Yeah, and I'd raise this also, juxtaposing the way we are with different facets of the government that are streamlined on digitization. When we look at the e-citizen, everyone is required now to operate through a new single pay bill number, and people also have been raising concerns regarding that. Let's just try and unpack that, all of us, so that we can see if at all, like we had the issue of hackers and we had systems grounding to a halt. Are we in a safer place? Let's begin with you, Churchill.
You know, there is, in yesterday's paper, you must have seen an invitation by the Ministry of Interior and National Administration. There is a proposed set of rules to cybercrime and computer misuse. And it focuses on, I think, how we can secure the cyberspace. I think it is a timely intervention to try to tighten some of the loopholes that perhaps exist. But as civil society, of course, will be going there with a view to checking whether it will encroach into right to privacy and digital space, because Kenyans have a right to still use the same digital space to exercise their freedom of expression, freedom of access to information, and so on. But I think if government wants to be on top of the game, as it were, then, and in light of all this that is unfolding, including the recent cyber attacks, of course we were assured that no data was lost. We do not know how true is that, because we have now agreed more or less that lying is a currency in the current government. But we hope that the efforts that have been put in place starting on Monday, I think the 18th, they'll be listening to different sectors and will be converging at the Pride in Azure in Westlands to give our views on some of the proposed regulations. That may stem the tide, but what worries me is, and that's been alluded to by Honorable Kirwa, that there seems to not to be consultation even within government, so that even when the Worldcoin happened, the CS for information thought that those people were procedurally and legally in town, only for the Ministry of Interior, CS Kendeki, to come and clarify that those people did not even have a license to be in the country in the first place. And that kind of a picture where it seems that the right hand does not know what the left is doing, did not really portray us well as a country that is properly coordinated. And I think it is under those circumstances that the previous regime decided to elevate one's, yes, slightly above the others to make sure that everything is coordinated. There was interdepartmental, consultations and so on and sittings. So we hope that, the new measures that are being rolled out will help, further secure. But you see, as a country, we must also anchor all this on values. It continues to worry me that some of the tendencies that we had during the campaigns, that this group led by Itumbi that still is in operation. So I wonder how it interfaces with the National Intelligence Service, because they seem this unofficial National Intelligence Bureau that Itumbi runs, and Itumbi is not an ordinary Kenyan. Of course, he has no peculiar talents, but there is a way in which he associates with the powers that be today. And as long as he continues to run those informal national intelligence bureaus and churns out a lot of propaganda, I think in communist countries he would qualify for minister for propaganda and such like things. We need to consolidate and now respect. There are things you can do when you are campaigning or when you are in the opposition, as the current president projected himself to be, but now that he's in charge, everything under his government must align with the mainstream government institutions so that we do not cause confusion among the general public. Right, and maybe just to get an inside view, we can see what really happened yesterday. We know that investigations into the operation of the tools for humanity cooperation in Kenya and the gadgets they used to collect data from Kenyans underway. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki says forensic audit on 48 gadgets that were used for collecting data have been handed over to investigative authorities, with statements already recorded from persons of interest. And our reporter Brenda Zeda Radidu attended the last sitting of a parliamentary ad hoc committee probing Worldcoin operations before tabling its report on the floor of the House.
Just 1 minute. It is the last sitting of the 17-member Parliament ad hoc committee headed by Narok West MP Gabriel Tongoyo, looking into the legal regulatory compliance of Worldcoin projects operations in the country.
I, Kithure Kindiki, do swear.
Appearing before the committee, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki. And unlike those who appeared before the committee, the Interior Cabinet Secretary was faced with the big question of who are the powerful people protecting Worldcoin and their activities in Kenya.
We have had some very powerful people and a very important people coming over here, meeting some very, very important people.
Who is protecting these people? Chair, I don't know. Any person who it is established, aided, any crime which may have been committed in the circumstances of the Worldcoin, we will hold them accountable.
The Interior Cabinet Secretary was put to task to explain why some officials of the company left the country despite orders stopping travel out of the country put in place pending investigation.
There was intervention, diplomatic intervention by the government of the United States of America. And the two governments reached an understanding that instead of detaining these people when we have not arrived at a point where we have established that they have committed crimes, they should be allowed to leave the country. And the government of the United States of America has pledged to surrender these people if they are needed.
Gadgets that were used to capture biometric data from Kenyans in July have been seized by the government for a forensic audit to establish the exact number of Kenyans whose data was captured.
This company, as you have said, started mining data way ahead before they even mentioned issues to do with registering in Kenya. Could we not have had already arraigned some in court?
We have recorded approximately 26 statements from witnesses and persons of interest. Worldcoin operations, assorted merchandise or equipments have been recovered.
According to Kindiki, the company started the operations in Kenya in the guise of operating an education program on cryptocurrency. The committee sought to know whether Kenyans whose data was collected by Tools for Humanity Corporation can be retrieved and recovered.
There is a different opinion, again from experts in this space, saying even when it is deleted, there is a way that data, once it's in that space, cannot be completely and with certainty be retrieved.
Kindiki pointed that gaps in the Security Act has created a leeway for such organizations to operate freely, adding that there is need to amend the National Intelligence Act 2012.
But even as the Parliamentary Huduma Committee winds up its work today when it comes to the probe on the operations of Worldcoin here in the country, questions still linger as to who exactly is protecting Worldcoin operators. This is after it emerged that the Data Commissioner's Office registered this company even after a cessation was put in place. Brenda Zeda Radido, KTN News.
Of course, the government has roped in the Interpol to try and also assist with investigations. We are just coupling that with the issue of Maisha card and data protection as well. And I wanted just to hear from Kipruto Rapkirwa. We were holding court also with Professor Gitela Naitoli. Had just to leave a bit early today because also he had other commitments that are pinching on his time a bit. So I don't know, first of all, did you register for Huduma number yourself? Kipruto
Yeah, I registered for Huduma number and they gave me some cheat or a small receipt that I've faithfully kept because I thought one day they will tell me my Huduma number is ready, and I go for it. And at times you wonder, this ID that I carry has some unique number. And I was wondering, why don't they really transform whatever we already have instead of going out to roll out another program? And as if that was not enough, that old program that you say cost about 7 billion is now being shelved aside, and you're talking of 10 billion, yeah. 10 billion. Now you are telling us there is another 1 billion that is going to be expended for purposes of getting the Maisha number. So which is which? I think the government ought to be very clear in communication. We are not saying there is anything mischievous, but let them be clear on communication so that one, we understand what does it mean. How are we going to collapse all the documents that we have into this Maisha number? What does it make it unique? Are the hackers going to get into some of our data without the requisite authority? Given the confusion that now seems to pervade the atmosphere of this administration. These are issues that are worrying us, and we need to have clarity of explanation in terms of what is going on. Why did we leave the other one? Why didn't we integrate with the normal ID at that particular time? Because ID has a unique number. Why don't you just elevate my ID, make it digital, and allow me to have a new ID without going through the rigmarole of going to register in certain centers when the ID is still a valid documentation of identifying who I am.
All right, I thought the new ID is a new generation ID as well. It's not a smart ID.
We thought so.
I think it takes us back to what we were talking about earlier on communication. We are in a country that has very serious decline of values and a lot of dishonesty. We assume that Kenyans are not seeing. We assume even when we are doing a good thing, there may be no need of communicating. And I want to take us back, first of all, on a light note, to what my good brother, the Honorable Kirwa, said, that you cannot set somebody who has messed up in a place to be the doorkeeper. I want to remind him also there is the other school of thought that you set a thief to catch a thief. Okay. So, and it is working very well. If you look at what Professor Kindiki is doing, he must have set a few guys to tell him what has been the problem in immigration. And therefore, they are deliberately showing him, go this direction. Appear when you are not supposed to be appearing there. No minister has ever ambushed this. Come and do this. And therefore, Kenyans are very happy, even when you look at the feedback of the same kind of a process. It does not help a lot to come out of a situation where Kenyans know that number plates are created to make money to a new regime. ID Huduma number is being created to make some money and to pilferage something else on this other side. It does not help, because that is what is deep in the mind of Kenyans. It would help more if these people would come out and say, the reason why we are doing this, the reason why Huduma number did not work, the reason why we spent a lot of money, 10 billion, the reason why we want to spend 7 billion is because we want to save you as a Kenyan this kind of a process. We want to combine all these things, be it the DL, be it everything else. So that communication is what is missing. And therefore, anything that anyone touches is just stinking to the eyes and to the nose of the Kenyan. And therefore, we need to start changing. We need to move in the direction that Kenyans can understand the why of things, because that is what we need to be able to do. It's really painful, yet it could be very important, hence the need for communication and dealing with the decline of public perception and values by doing what is right, so that we can resonate with Kenyans.
Yeah. All right, and we want just to, of course, get to have a wrap-up of how the politics of the week has been on the soapbox, just to give us an inkling of the tone and tenor of our political environment, even as we try to grapple with the issue of the bipartisan talks. The soapbox is up next.
There is no way a country can be able to neglect a seed carrier and we expect to thrive. We must fight, protect, and continue to fight for the boy child.
Haya mazungumzo ambayo yanaendelea kwa sasa tuyaache, sababu ni kujifanya tu. Ile hali mtu anajitakia yeye mwenyewe, hataki wale viongozi wengine ambao wamechaguliwa waweze kunufaika na wanufaishe wananchi ambao waliwachagua.
How is it possible that wewe kama leader wa ODM unataka kuongea na serikali ya UDA na wale walishaona light wakakuja mbele yako kuongea na serikali, badala uwapigie makofi uwape heko kwa kupata network, sasa unawa-expel? Where is the genuineness in this?
Mungu mpigwa mnada, unapiga kura bila kufikiria.
Huyu mtu, he is not genuine about any dialogue, any discussion. Because if he was genuine, why is he punishing members of parliament who has come to sit with William Ruto? Nao wamekuja kutafuta maendeleo. Yeye akija anatafuta mambo ya familia yake.
Gharama maisha imepanda sana. Bei ya unga iko wapi?
Huyu kitendawili historia yake ni mbaya.
Bei ya mafuta ya kupika, petroli.
Sasa mimi naenda Colombia kutafuta soko ya kahawa, alafu nipite Cuba. Lakini nimepanga. Hiyo ikulu nimeweka mitego kila kona, kila pande, kila mahali nimeweka, na niko na watu wa kunipigia simu. Wakionekana tu karibu naambiwa. Kwa sababu uwezi mtu ameharibu serikali 4 umkubalie akuje ya 5. Si ataharibu.
Mnaona hata mimi navumilia wale wa maandamano na mara naongelesha hawa kidogo nini. Kwa sababu sasa unajua hii dunia na mambo ni namna hiyo. So tunasungushana tu hivyo, lakini tunahakikisha kwamba kazi inaendelea.
Tunasema kuna jukumu ya serikali ya juu na jukumu ya serikali ya chini. Kujenga masoko, soko ni jukumu ya serikali ya chini. Wamekataa nayo, wanataka wao ndio wanajenga soko, alafu rudi na kuja kupungua. Unasikia hiyo?
Juzi amekuja pale KICC, nimemkaribisha vizuri. Simuliona? Kwa heshima, kwa sababu yeye ni mzee wetu, amekuja, tumemwalika. Sasa kuliko aende ya kwa kiti yake, anataka kuingia marais pahali wamekaa wale wamechaguliwa. Na hii mtu, kuna mtu amemchagua.
Kujenga manyumba ni jukumu la serikali ya chini. Wamekataa na pesa. Matibabu ni jukumu la serikali ya chini. Wamekataa na pesa.
Tunataka tumchunge, tumpagie retirement yake, tutafutie askari, tutafutie gari, nyumba ya kukaa, akitaka pikipiki moja ama bili ya kumuongoza, there is no problem. Kama iko makosa, aende nyumbani apumzike. Iko sasa hiyo miaka 80, sasa ina miaka nasonga.
The continuity of a government is a strong party.
Wacha kununua wabunge ambao walichaguliwa kwa chama ya Azimio.
Wakenya wote, wangogo zote za Kenya, to join chama ambayo ni ya kimataifa, chama ya kitaifa cha UDA.
Wanachama wote wa UDA tunaenda kufanya uchaguzi Disemba.
Mimi ndio naweka ile register ya shares. Nyinyi mko na shares mingi kabisa.
Sawa, funguliwe.
Huyu William Ruto walimtesa. Nimefika pale kwa nyumba alikuwa anakaa. Nimekuta ilikuwa inanyesha kama mchana. Alikuwa kila nyumba ameweka sufuria ya kuteka maji. Choo zote zimevunjika. Maji imekatwa, stima imekatwa. Mtoto wa mwenyewe, si hata yeye ni mtoto wa mama. Walimuumiza huyu rais. Mimi nilienda pale nikatoa machozi. Sikuwa najua ameumia kiasi hiyo.
Kwa sasa hivi kati ya shilingi 10 ambayo tunaokota kama ushuru, shilingi 6 kwa shilingi 10 tunatumia kulipa madeni. Kwa sababu jukumu la kujenga Kenya ni jukumu letu. Wale wanaota ndoto ya kwamba wataiba mali yetu ama watatumia ufisadi na ukora na utapeli kuharibu mali wa Kenya wametafuta, ushuru wa Kenya wamelipa. Hawa watu nimewaambia mambo yao ni matatu.
Kufuatana na mkakati ambao inaendelea, vile Ruto anaongoza serikali, saa hizi nikuambie tu ukweli. Ukienda kwa maisha imeanza kubadilika. Kwa sababu saa hii watu wamepata mavuno. Saa hii gorogoro ni shilingi 50. Na tulikuwa hiyo ndio maana wenzetu walikuwa naenda maandamano.
Kuna walikuwa wanakimbia Ministry of Lands, tumefunga. Kuna walikuwa wanakimbia kule kotini, tumefunga. Wewe Mwizi! Siko zimei? Yule mkora mwenye kuua watu kwa kuwadunga visu ni sawa na yule mwizi wa shamba ambaye anaiba shamba ambao lingejengwa kituo cha polisi.
We have come together to talk to our people, to deal with any issues that are on the grounds, to ensure that there is permanent peace.
As governors, for example, we can't do what we envisage to do development in those regions if we have insecurity.
It is not by coincidence that this area has the worst problems of insecurity. It is a factor of marginalization, and road network is the biggest problem in this region.
All right, and of course that is DP Gachagua there, amongst other leaders as well. And truly he's in Colombia. He said he will go to Colombia. You can see him hard at work there, uprooting kahawa in Colombia. That is Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. But he seems also to be now the person who's bringing the climate change to the bipartisan talks. If you heard him, he's a dark ominous cloud on this climate, on the clouds there that is affecting the climate of the bipartisan talks. You can see the puppeteers from different side of a divide. These are the heads of the bipartisan talks. Kalo, what do you see? The guy has been raining.
Literally.
It is from the global warming to the global boiling. What are your sentiments? Just talking, yes, and looking ahead, especially with these talks, we have the resumption of them next week. Chachel Suba.
You know what amuses me about these talks, and that's what makes me think that Kenyans need to take what Gachagua is saying seriously. We have just seen His Excellency the President saying tunasugushana, meaning that we are taking each other in circles in English. I saw the other day the Azimio lot, took time to reflect, I think for a couple of hours, and wondering whether these talks are supposed to yield anything. I've seen how dismissive the leadership of the Kenya Kwanza delegation is of some of the remarks that the Deputy President has been making. And I'm gradually coming to the conclusion that Gachagua may have the last laugh after all, that these talks are not going to yield anything. And he keeps on reminding us that he's saying that as the Deputy President. So when you look at the lack of concrete steps, of course now they have the excuse that there is public participation, people should submit memoranda. The same Deputy President, has told us, and in fact confirmed, that the head of Azimio delegation in the talks was at State House and had a lunch, I don't know, is it dinner, with the visiting heads of state that were in the country during the African Climate Summit and so on. So if we are not careful, and as the President himself has said, he's taking them in circles, and it may not be meant to yield anything. The only thing that the President seems to be clear about is the creation of the leader of opposition, the office of the leader of opposition, so that in the morning they can take a trumpet, call the government names at midday and in the evening, and life continues. That's how casual the President is about even that office. And every time he speaks about it, he creates the impression that it is like it is his gift to the opposition to shut them up or to make sure they don't take to the streets. I think that, in my view, is a very negative notion about whatever office they want to create. I personally, if you ask me, I do not think that office needs to be created. I think there is a way in which we narrowly interpreted the Constitution. Because if we indeed adopted the American presidential system, Obama, the former president of US, only resigned as senator after he had won the presidency. McCain continued to serve even after running for presidency for the remainder of his term as a senator. In Kenya, I've never understood why we stop people running as presidents from running also as members of parliament. If we could allow, as indeed the Constitution does not bar anyone, the Constitution only frowns upon holding two offices. But we need to allow people running for president, because this Constitution does not bar anyone to run for president and also as a member of the National Assembly. If in future we can do that, then whoever loses the presidency can continue as the leader of minority, but also as a full-time member of the National Assembly, or whichever office they so choose.
Right. Yeah. Let's hear from Dr. Kalua.
Any government in power, be it Kenyan, be it any other government elsewhere, would be very keen to see itself roll out the plan that they intended to achieve upon election. No government will be at peace to be seen to have been corrected by an outsider when they have an entire unit in force. In fact, the moment any government hears about an outcry or something that seemingly would bring peace to the nation, then they take it up so that they can employ and get to move in that direction for the good of having the last laugh. This is a reality. Again, no government would want to be at the risk of losing its power midway in their term of service. And some of the fears and risks that are always there is a constitutional change or something that is going to lead to such a process. Any government will try to desist, and especially in the first term of their presidency or leadership. That is a fact, not just for Kenya alone. Having said that, the process and discussions that are currently ongoing, I am not a prophet of doom, and I am not trying to imagine that there will be no success out of this. But I have a feeling that this may extend. The discussion is not going to be 60 days. It may end up being 4 years. And it is a possibility that the fences will be extended and extended so that there is peace, so that the government definitely achieves what it intends to achieve, including what is being raised there, but not that coming out of that kind of a sitting. This is a possibility. I'm not talking about this just as Kenya, but anywhere that a government exists and wants to achieve something and to be seen to have done what they were elected for. I say this because the legal standing of the current seating in Bomas can be challenged even in court. Just one person goes to court and it is another BBI case who is the promoter of this kind of a process. And therefore, this could be neither here nor there. The fact that there is a break, there will be another break, there will be something else that may happen. And it's normal. It's not just a Kenyan thing. It's just a leadership thing because nobody wants to put themselves at risk. However, there are opportunities of dealing with the issues in what Kenyans want to deal with in a way that can and has been previously been prescribed by the courts, and upon realization of BBI and what it came, who are the promoters, there are ways that can be done, and having a process that is well done, promoted in the best way possible through a popular initiative that can make even the presidency great, one that resonates with Kenyans without the fear of having to lose leadership. And that is the direction that our country needs to go forward with. You can see always, even right now, the discomfort. You saw the leaders from Luo Nyanza community who say that Raila is not even in control over Bomas. So there is already disquiet in that process. There is a lot of discomfort in other areas. These are situations that we need to avoid, because even the countries, the sitting in Bomas cannot necessarily deal with the issues that Kenyans want to deal with because of the process, which must be out of parliament, needs to be taken. So we need to be very, very focused. We need to appreciate that changing anything that is going to make Kenya a great nation must not be silenced. It needs to be supported by the government so that everybody is in a win-win situation. The current trouble that we have of unemployment, the devolution processes, the leadership and integrity, all these issues and high cost of living and the tax base in our country may not be dealt with just by a great president, may not be just dealt with by a person who means good for the country. It needs to be dealt with from a foundational point of view, where the Constitution really deals with the issues in the best way possible for the good of our nation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dibal. Personally, I strongly have a lot of faith in any national conversation, because that's the only time people will be able to come together, identify areas of similarities and the differences that may arise among us or between us. I have faith in the process. I have faith in the individuals in Bomas because they are leaders of high standing. I have faith because I know the alternative is a disaster. We lost many Kenyans because of the maandamano. Regardless of the argument from either side, whether it is putting sufrias on our heads was an issue, but it was something that we could have avoided if we had listened to each other from the beginning of time. But this has become a country where there is a lot of posturing, a country where there are winners and losers. But I thought elections only pick leaders for the intervening period, but they don't create losers, because even those who are number 2, number 3, number 4 are also leaders in their own right. In some countries, if you are number 2 in an election for a member of parliament, and the member of parliament does disappear for any reason or the other, you take over in that constituency, in some jurisdiction. Therefore, being number 2 is not being consigned to oblivion. It is a position that so many Kenyans wanted you to be a leader, but so many more wanted your opponent as the leader. The second issue that I feel it is good to bring to the table is, yes, I'm worried, as Dr. Green is, that the promoter of this is the president. And that is how BBI was defeated in a court of law. Now, was it destined to fail, or was it started with that destination in mind? So that, yes, you can talk. Towards the end, a court of law will say, no, the promoter is the same person as the promoter of the other processes that made BBI fail. But I have a feeling that 13 years after promulgation of the new constitution, the current constitution that we have, yes, in the campaign of that, those who are promoting the draft of the new constitution was saying, yes, it is 80% okay. There may be areas of disagreement, but it doesn't mean this document is bad. Now, with the benefit of 13 years, it is high time that we did an audit of this constitution, so that what is organically Kenyan, we can lift it out of it. What we believe is creating a contradiction of a kind, we are able to address it, and clearly so. The way Churchill has said, yes, in future, we should allow those who are running for certain offices as a way of creating a safety net to run for the lower offices. And of course, when they don't win the other position, they go a step down, but still with a mandate like that of Raila of close to 7 million Kenyans, you cannot just dismiss him that he lost elections. He was a formidable candidate. Anything could have happened. I'm not suggesting elections were stolen, but anything could have happened. But imagine the way we are polarized in this country, 7 million on this side, 7 million on the other side, and 7 million not turning up to vote. We have created a situation where trust on leadership is increasingly diminishing because of the way we have allowed ourselves to get into. Now, finally, I would want to persuade both sides, whether it is Kenya Kwanza or Azimio side, that let us not dismiss these talks. Let us go up to the end, create the issues that may be necessary. You can freeze them if the current regime fears a referendum on the eve of the next election. Freeze them up to an appropriate time, but let us distill the issues and agree on a raft of them. Then at the right time, you unfreeze them and you allow them to take over. Who knows? The beneficiary of the official leader of opposition may be the current president or somebody else. Because this is not meant for Raila. It is meant for whoever does not win the presidency must have a position where he has some legitimacy. At the same time, he has also the necessary leverage. You cannot say Opio and I can wear the shoes of Raila and walk straight. You'll actually be struggling to walk across the floor if he was to wear the shoes of Raila. And therefore, we need somebody, half of Kenyans have said, we believe in him, to have an elevated office for him to be able to communicate with the administration of the day.
Thank you.
Having said what I said just for a minute, I think what I gave is just a general scenario. the discussions at Bomas need to be supported. They need to be upheld. Every member needs to put their best foot forward, because that is the option. The calmness that we have in the country is based on those discussions. And the leadership needs to understand the representation and appreciate them from both sides. They are great people, and we need to really ensure that this process goes on, irrespective of the risks and the dangers that are hanging on such a situation. It's a great process.
Thank you. We need to hop back into history and find out also how we are dealing with our archives, if we can remember some of the faces and the sentiments they said, which time and when. Museum is up next.
It's part and parcel of our broader renewable energy strategy, which means that we want to make sure that all 40 million Kenyans have access to electricity, have access to clean energy, and have access to electricity. Now, it's important because it's cheap and it's affordable. So we believe that all Kenyans can also afford it. The fact that it's off-grid and it's decentralized means that it's only just going to get larger, to reach a larger number of people. We want to be almost 100% renewable, but at the same time, we know that the conventional grid cannot reach all Kenyan people, especially in the remote villages. Our number one energy resource is solar. We live in the tropics, so it's our number one energy resource. And so I see the contribution of solar power increasing. We're also increasing our contribution of wind power and also geothermal power. So when it comes to renewable energy resources, we are very well endowed.
All right, so of course it began there with the former CS of Environment, Judy Wakungu there, just speaking about how we should be now aligning ourselves to renewable energy just from the archives as well. We want to get our closing remarks from our guests this morning, and of course also setting the tone for the weekend. I don't know if Judge plays golf, or which sport do you?
I play football.
You play football?
Play golf.
What position? You don't look like a football player.
No, I'm not just a football fan, but I'm a football player as well.
What position?
What
position? You see now you're
number
thinking
seven.
Number 7.
Number 7. I'm a striker. I play in the forwards. I'm a scorer, and I want to believe that
number 7 is a striker.
I'll continue
for the wings there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I know also for the civil society, even as we're winding up, the issue of a government regarding a directive that all NGOs should now be aligning to the beta pillars. That has been also not going down well with the civil society. Briefly, as we're winding up.
Yes, of course, we took great exception to the directive. In our view, it was uncalled for. First of all, over the years, even before Kenya Kwanza was concocted late last year, civil society has civil society has been working with the people at the lowest part of the pyramid. Over the years, we identify with the vulnerable, we identified with the poor, the poorest of the poor. So we have been doing that over the years. So that was unnecessary. But we can tell the government without mincing words, we are not going to allow ourselves as a sector to be marinated with anything UDA because we are non-partisan. The ethos on which we are based, the values on which we are founded, do not associate whatsoever with the kind of partisanship that we see and
you really sound
shareholding that we see in government.
You really sound like a chef, concoction and marinated. Anyway, let's hear from Kim.
Yes, Dibal. Thank you for this opportunity. I still want to urge the administration of the day and all administrations in the 47 counties to move a notch higher in terms of preparing for the El Nino. Let it not come, but let it not come and find us flat-footed. And I want to applaud a young man from Nakuru, Dr. Samuel Maura, who is Chief of Staff acting, who has issued letters to various places in Nakuru on the kind of things to look for. issues of opening the tunnels, removing takataka from the drainage, and many other issues that makes somebody ready to fight El Nino. I feel this is the way to go, and let us not be found flat-footed.
Thank you.
While we sit as leaders from different levels and capacities, imagining that everything is okay, there are many Kenyans who are suffering on medical field because doctors are on strike, suffering out of high cost of living, suffering because of so much things, and service delivery is not working. It's high time that every leader, wherever they are, listens to what Mwananchi is saying. Kenya has got great people. I was reading the other day, getting to know about one Professor Oyo, who has done the entire infrastructure of UK. And we have Kenyans who just want to do a good job, especially the young people, the youth of this nation.
Indeed.
Let us support them, let us listen, let us give each other an opportunity to be the change that we want to see.